right, we gotta forge ahead because we got a lot of big show left for you. Some heat for addressing Afghanistan during his RNC address. We're talking about Mitt Romney took some heat for not addressing that. So what do American veterans think about that? Pete Hegseth, a vet of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, he's coming up to the stage next.
Hello, Peter.
Welcome back, everyone. Governor Mitt Romney taking heat for not mentioning Afghanistan in last week's address to the nation at the Republican National Convention. So what actually is the Romney-Ryan plan?
We do agree with the 2014 timeline. Where we have some differences of opinion are political timetables for troop sizes. We feel that our commanders in the theater ought to have the resources they need, especially throughout the fighting season, to make sure that the counterinsurgency operations are done with the amount of troops that are needed to see the job through as safely as possible.
U.S. Army veteran and CEO of Concerned Veterans from America, Pete Hegseth, joins me now here on the stage. I know that you say, Pete, that you were disappointed in Romney-Ryan and their plan. Why?
Well, I just don't like the fact that we're sticking to a hard deadline. You know, we're not going to remove all troops in 2014. The president hasn't said that either. But the minute we set that deadline, as I've talked about many times before, we incentivize the enemy to sort of double down on what they're doing. So we should continue to withdraw. The story of the outcome in Afghanistan was written long ago with mistakes that were made. But let's not make it a calendar-based deadline. It's got to be based on conditions and listening to what commanders are actually accomplishing.
Do you find it interesting that both Romney and Obama seem not talking about Afghanistan at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's politically complex and not popular, which means in an election season, if it's complex and not popular, nobody's going to talk about it. But we've got 80,000 troops right now overseas fighting a war, and you don't hear anything about it. I wish we did.
Okay, now there's this ad by Concerned Veterans for America. What does it talk about in the ad?
Well, it talks about the fact that yesterday we hit $16 trillion in debt. We're adding $100 billion a month. Interest on our debt will soon exceed our defense budget. And, you know, what's Washington trying to do about it? Chop the defense budget across the board rather than reforming our true drivers of debt and deficit like entitlement programs. Entitlement programs have grown 2.5 times faster than the defense budget since 9/11. That's something we got to be talking about.
So, of course, the military cuts would come because that was part of sequestration.
Yes.
When the members of Congress could not come up with a way in which to solve the debt crisis.
Yeah,
right?
the so-called super committee that wasn't so super, and then gave us $500 billion in automatic cuts that will just be across the board. They don't actually address our debt and deficit. So Concerned Vets is standing up to say we got to start reforming government, both the Defense Department and the way we spend money, but also our entitlement programs. That is what is truly driving future debt and future deficit and most of the debt we've accrued under President Obama. So let's have an adult conversation. Let's present plans and attack it, but not sort of Washington-esque speak like sequestration, which doesn't actually fix the problem.
All right, so let's take a look at the difference between defense and entitlement spending to spell it out. So entitlements, $2.2 trillion. Defense, $700 billion. So your analysis of that, Pete, as a former vet, and now looking at it from an economic perspective, is what?
You can't balance the budget on the back of the DOD. There's not enough you can cut from the Defense Department to fix the problems we're in. $700 billion, you cut all of that, that's 1/2 of 1 year's deficit, not let alone the debt. So you can reform the way money is spent, but ultimately it's those entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, difficult to talk about, politically charged, but if you don't tackle those and take them on, you won't fix those trend lines. Those trend lines are heading too quickly, too high.
All right. Pete Hegseth, always good to get your perspective.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.